And one more time for Mike Long, please. Hope you don't mind, I have notes here. Get a little carried away speaking sometimes. By the way, if I ever look too comfortable in a suit, just shoot me. This is totally, the last tour I did completely in shorts and flip-flops. So this is a major step forward. I really appreciate you all taking the time to actually listen to a guy in a suit. I don't really consider it my suit, it's more like my chauffeur's outfit. Or my, anonymous, right? The anonymous suit, the anonymous logo, right? It's like a parody of a real suit. It cost $100. My goal is to make it last all the way through 2020. It'll be the only suit I wear the entire freaking time. It's going to be like really stiff by the end of this tour, I'm sure. All right, so how many of you consider yourselves awake? Show of hands. Almost everybody, huh? What a bunch of collectivist conformists you are. Did anybody not raise their hand? No? None of you?
Oh, she didn't.
Okay, good. Because you're the one who's really awake here going, Adam, you didn't define the terms of your question, right? That's someone who's really awake, thinking critically, thinking for themselves, right? We have this metaphor, awake and asleep, like you woke up to libertarianism, or you woke up to the message of freedom, or you woke up to the nature of government, and it's really a pretty limiting metaphor. And first of all, it's kind of insulting to anybody who doesn't share your exact awareness that is important to you to say, well, they're asleep and I'm awake. And there's so many different ways that human beings are becoming more aware these days. Spirituality, technology, all of the different fields of the sciences where people are increasing our awareness exponentially right now. And so for us, it's sort of like, it's almost, we gotta stay humble. Say, hey, before we go 3D printing rocket ships in our backyards to populate the cosmos, can we just take care of the violence problem? Can we just stop making this moral exception for government? If anything, I feel like, I'm the dumb guy trying to move humanity forward where all the smart guys already leap way far ahead of me. And it's just like, no. If we just got government out of the way of all of that. But this process of waking up, it's very important to understand what we're talking about and to define this term. Because I think of it as forming a worldview based on your own reason and insight, based on your own thinking rather than what you've been told, right? And we have a bad habit of mythologizing this process a little bit. Like, oh, it was this one thing or this one guy or this one conversation. But really, it's a deeper intellectual process that we go through. And if we want to change the world, we have to change how people think. So we need to examine how our own thinking changed to embrace this message. You all know the joke, right? What's the difference between a statist and a libertarian? About 6 months. Right, thank you. Well, with information inflation now, it's actually a lot easier. And I'd like to think I have one of the best bodies of anecdotal data of how people wake up, having done several national tours, and everywhere I go I try to ask as many people as I can, how did you wake up? And of course, asking libertarians, you get all sorts of smart-ass answers to that question. How did you wake up? Surrounded by hookers and blow? Bacon and coffee? I mean, anyway, it gets worse. That's the PC version of the best answers I've heard to this question. But now what I hear sometimes it's really encouraging is it's not 6 months, it's not reading a bunch of books, it's one good weekend of watching YouTube videos and reading Wikipedia articles, right? And I've never heard anyone say, well, I was being yelled at in a bar. And this guy he was arguing with me so effectively. At the end of it, I had to concede he was right about everything. I was like, all right, fine, I'm a libertarian. By the way, about why we're here tonight, I know a lot of times libertarians get together, we just like to pat ourselves on the back and tell each other how right we are about everything. So just to get this out of the way, you guys are right about everything. Now we're going to move on to something a little more practical subject matter, okay? I've never heard anyone say, well, one night I was involved in the most brutal Facebook flame war ever. And I lost, and then I was like, okay, fine, I'll be a libertarian. Right? It doesn't happen that way. I've never heard anyone say, well, I've got this libertarian friend on the internet, and one day he came up with the dankest meme ever. And I lolled so hard, I just had to admit he was right about everything, and then I was like, okay, fine, I'm a libertarian. So you understand the point that it's a deeper process, it's an intellectual process, it's a very personal, even spiritual process for people to abandon the status quo that they've been fed. One of the exciting things about this is you notice if you've been around long enough, this process, it's a one-way street. No one, and this, again, where the metaphor kind of fails is no one wakes up and goes back to sleep. Yeah, freedom, liberty, self-ownership. I own myself as a free human being, and therefore ethics, and we shouldn't point guns at innocent people or lock innocent people in jail. We should respect human rights, and we can render government obsolete and move forward to a free, non-violent society. And then the next day goes, yeah, never mind. Let's just go back to pointing the guns at government and people that I don't like, right? It's a one-way process, which I hope would give you a sense of the inevitability of this great turning point in human history, the inevitability of achieving a free society. And you get to see this now. There's a process of awareness, about 6 months, right? Maybe people start by, they got that one thing, that one issue that hooks them, that leads them down the rabbit hole. And of course, the only point at which you're wrong is when you say that you finally gotten to the bottom of the rabbit hole, because if you've been around long enough, you know there is no bottom, but there is still a certain intellectual convergence that is happening around the idea of voluntarism or anarcho-capitalism or libertarianism. And about the semantics here, anybody ever get just a little pissed off when you hear the government say drugs and alcohol? Some of you know what I mean, right? What do I mean by that? Because, right, you're saying drugs and a subcategory of drugs, like cars and station wagons, right? So that's how I feel when people say libertarians and anarchists. Because the term libertarian was originally coined to describe anarcho-capitalism, specifically the Rothbardian concept of self-ownership, that you as a free, beautiful, independent human being own yourself as an independent consciousness. This is a feature of human existence, and this is the foundation of ethics. And if you apply that to politics, you get what is known as libertarianism. And this is something really important to me to understand, that this is not a political message. If the conversation of politics, the question of politics is, who do we point the guns of government at to organize society? And our answer is, nobody. This is not a political message. This is not a political movement. This is the anti-political movement. This is the anti-political message. You're sick of politics? Good. We have the cure for that. That's the potential of this. And the reason I'm so passionate about this and getting this understanding, not only because I know that this is the most effective way to reach people, especially young people today. They are looking for something radical. And I don't mean running around naked with your hair on fire. I mean radical by the actual definition of the word, which is striking at the root of the problem. They don't want to hear about you nibbling around the edges. They don't want to hear you tinkering with the mechanisms of government. They understand that something is fundamentally wrong. And this is why, again, the term waking up really does us a disservice, because, well, there's an old Hopi saying, you cannot wake someone who is pretending to be asleep. Most Americans know that there is something fundamentally, not just crooked, not just criminal, not just wrong around the edges, fundamentally wrong with government. And if you want to reach them, you're not going to do it with the political message of libertarianism as fiscally conservative, socially awkward. I'm sorry, fiscally conservative, socially liberal.
Awkward, yeah.
So, are any of you, I like to say I have a background in psychology, which is like a really nice way of saying my undergraduate degree is in psychology, so like, I read a lot of studies. I think it's really good background for politics, actually, especially for activism, to have a sense of how the human mind works. You'll never figure it out. It's freaking crazy. Everybody's crazy. Like, just give up, okay? But I've read a lot of studies. I was really into the social psychology aspect of what I was studying. One of my favorites is the Ash conformity study. What they did is they took a single experimental test subject